Hello wonderful people, it's Wild here. Today I'm going to be showing you everything you need to know about mud and mangroves, as well as giving you some inspiration for how you can use these blocks to create a variety of different styles of builds. I'll be showing you everything from Japanese to modern, as well as giving you some tips and tricks for how you can create a color palette using these new Minecraft blocks. Let's begin by looking at everything you need to know about mangrove wood and mud. Starting with the mangrove blocks, we've got our mangrove logs, and these can be harvested with any tool, including a fist, just like any other log. Now if you strip these like any other log with an axe, you get this lovely texture here, and you can turn these into planks, which are available in stairs and slabs. Mangrove trees have these groovy looking leaves which kind of look like jungle leaves with a slightly different texture. And this is where they change a little bit from normal trees, as mangrove trees have mangrove roots. Now these mangrove roots grow at the base of mangrove trees and can be harvested with any tool, including a fist. There are mangrove wood versions of all of the wooden items in the game, including trapdoors and doors, and these have a really interesting texture. As well as these items, you can also craft mangrove boats. And in addition to that, you can create mangrove boats with a chest. And to do that, you just need 5 mangrove planks and a chest. You create a boat like you would any other way, and place your chest on top. And this has a full chest worth of storage when you hop inside. So these mangrove trees grow naturally in mangrove swamp biomes. They grow from propagules, which hang from the trees, and you can gather these propagules with any tool, including your fist, and they always drop. Mangrove trees can be grown in water or on land, including on dirt, grass blocks, coarse dirt, podzol, mycelium, moss, and mud. Now let's have a look at mud. Mud can be found naturally in mangrove swamps. However, it can also be crafted in several ways, and it's broken with any tool, including a fist. So to craft mud, you'll need a bottle of water and some dirt, or rooted dirt, or coarse dirt. And all you need to do to turn these into mud is just click on them with the bottle of water. A variation of mud is the muddy mangrove roots, and these are also found in the mangrove swamps. However, like the mud, they can be crafted and broken with any tool, including fists, but shovels is fastest, and that goes the same way for mud. When a mangrove tree grows, the roots and mud connect together to make muddy roots, and that's how they generate naturally. But if you want to craft these, you'll need a block of mud and some mangrove roots, and you'll just place them together in a crafting table. Another great block that uses mud is packed mud. Now this is a crafted material and can be broken with your fist, but using a pick is faster. To craft this, you'll need a block of mud and a piece of wheat, and you'll just place these together in a crafting table. Once you've got your packed mud, you can use this to create mud bricks, and these are crafted by placing 4 packed mud in a crafting table, like you would to create a crafting table itself. And these have a really interesting texture. It's a bit different to the stone brick texture with smaller brick pieces. However, you can't go ahead and break these bricks with a fist like you can regular packed mud. It won't drop anything. You need to use a pick. These wonderful new mud bricks are available in stairs, slabs, and walls, and they can be made using a stone cutter as well as in a crafting table. An interesting mechanic of mud is that you can dry it out by placing it on a dripstone, and it turns it into clay. Now on average this takes about 3 minutes and 45 seconds to change. However, according to my testing, it can take a wide variety of times. I had one block take just 10 seconds to switch, and then I had another block take 8 minutes and 14 seconds to switch, although it could be even more than that. So don't worry if your mud isn't changing instantly, it could take a little while. Unfortunately, you can't stack mud on top of each other and have them continue drying out. Once this first bottom one is dried out, the ones above it won't drip, but you can see the water dripping out of our block of mud here, and slowly it will turn over to clay. So now that you know everything you need to know about mangrove wood and mud, let's have a look at some block color palettes that use these new blocks and some builds that you can use to implement these new blocks in a variety of styles. So here we have 5 block color palettes, each of them utilizing mud and mangrove. Some tips to keep in mind when creating color palettes using these new blocks is that it's best to stick to neutrals alongside your mangrove wood as it is quite a bold color. Warm tones blend well with both the mangrove wood and the mud blocks, whereas cool tones provide a nice contrast, so you can utilize both depending on the style of build you're using. You can also use mud blocks as a building block instead of just in the ground. And remember that you can achieve very different looks with similar color palettes just by changing up the styling, so it's important to keep in mind the key features of a style and use those to your advantage. For this first color palette, I've gone ahead and created a Japanese style build. I've used the mangrove wood with its lovely red color, the roof, which is perfect for this style of build, and then I've brought the wood down towards the base of the build using it in these railings, in the fence posts, and around the doors. I think that the mangrove trapdoors in particular work really well for Japanese style builds. They have a really interesting shape and make great windows. You can see for this build I've mixed the mud bricks with some stone bricks, and I like the contrast in the texture here. While they're both brick, they have a different shape. And while the color palette does work really well for a Japanese build, you can see that it's the features like the roof and the covered patio that make this look like a Japanese house. For our next color palette, mud is going to play the starring factor, and I'm used it to create this desert style house. Now for this build, I've gone with a multi-layer approach, and I've gone with a relatively simple color palette with mainly browns and a hint of green. Now keep in mind that here in this biome, the leaves and the vines look quite lush. However, if I was in a desert biome, they would have a more muted tone. You can see how even here in an acacia biome, the leaves have a muted color, and I would recommend using either mangrove leaves or oak leaves if you are building in this kind of biome. For this desert style build, you can see that all of the walls are made out of mud, and I've used the mud bricks in the corners to define the shape, as well as some stairs to add a worn look to this build. I've created some castle-like elements on the tops of the roofs, and these little green canopies add a little bit of contrast to the muted colors of the rest of the build, as well as the quite square nature of it with a bit of a natural shape. Moving on to the next color palette, you can see I've used red glass here to go alongside the red tone of the mangrove wood, and this color palette works really well for a modern build. For this style of build, you can see that I've used mud blocks for the walls here. They have a great texture and work really well alongside the tinted glass. You can see for this modern build how just shades of white, grey and black alongside an accent color of red can give a really stylish and sleek look. And I've mixed these smooth, flat textures of the concrete with some textural elements with the wood to add a bit of visual interest to the build. This next color palette uses jungle wood, which blends in well with the mud bricks, and I've used it to create a really cool looking tree house. So this 2-tier canopy has the red as the starring color with our mangrove wood, but then I've used the accent details in jungle to provide a contrast. I've built this jungle house as a circle platform propped up in the tree, and the sloping shape of the platform really makes it feel like it's connected to the trunk of the jungle tree. Another interesting style point to keep in mind is that this is a circular build, and that is reflected in the circles here in the jungle trapdoors, as well as the circles in the new mangrove trapdoors. For our next building color palette, I'm over here in a mangrove swamp. So for this palette, I've utilized the mud and the mangrove, which works really well in this biome, and I've added a bit of oak wood and spruce wood. I like using lots of wood textures along these blocks as they have quite a natural feel. So with this color palette, I have created a swamp house. So this build is propped up on these stilts, and I have a smaller dock platform over here with a little bridge leading over to the house. I've got some really interesting roof lines going on here, with lots of gables and lots of different levels. And I've kept the whole thing quite open with this big balcony area. Making use of trapdoors and buttons is a really great way to go about building. You can see I've used them for window shutters, for decorations above the windows, and even to create an open door section here underneath this covered area. It's also important to think about how you flow through a build. So I come up to my entryway and I've got some storage here and my entryway door. And this feels right as it is the entry of the build. But if I keep moving through, I move into a living space which you would expect to be further away from the entrance. And that then flows into the living space without a doorway. And since mangrove biomes are warm biomes, it makes sense to have an open house like this, so it's important to think about the location of your build as well when designing it. I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial and got some inspiration for how you can use these 1.19 blocks. I'd really appreciate if you considered subscribing, and if you'd like to support me more, check out my Patreon. See you in another video!